Hello, fellow Clashers. It is KairosTime. Welcome back to another episode of Challenge Winning Decks. Now, I know it has been a very long time since I've uploaded a regular video. I've mostly been doing streaming. If you're interested in joining my streams, right over there is my stream schedule. I would love to have you join in there. I've had a ton of fun doing streaming. It's a really big blast. But I'm planning on sticking with doing some videos and everything, so make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Now, I did want to talk about what we're doing today. We're talking about two different decks. I'm going to show you them really fast here. We got this first one here up over there, and then we also have this one. Now I'm going to be talking about this deck a little bit later on. A Mortar Goblin Gang deck, really? What? Super unique, right? It's also one of the 12th round of a challenge, so we'll definitely check that out. Now let's start out with this one. Now I want to talk about this one because here we've got Tails. And he has some underlevel cards. Level 6 Giant, actually. And with a level 6 Giant, he was able to win the 12th round of a challenge. Yeah, it's just a classic, but still. Just in one day of testing things out, to win the 12th round of a challenge with underleveled cards is impressive. To me, at least. I mean, that's impressive. So, let's go ahead and watch this here. Now, I did want to talk about these decks. Or this deck specifically. You'll notice that there are 3 spells as well as the graveyard. So 4 spells total, and that means that there's definitely a possibility of you having 4 spells in your hand all at the same time and have to play one of them to cycle to another card. If that ever happens and you start out with all 4 spells, wait until your opponent does something and try to make the best of it. Other than that, that's the one reason why I'm hesitant about this deck. Now, I did play it. It's a ton of fun. I actually won a tournament. We were doing a Goblin Gang tournament in my stream yesterday. You guys should seriously check it out. It was a ton of fun. And if you want a really nasty spell bait deck that uses the Goblin Gang, you'll definitely want to check it out. A guy took second place with the deck. I ended up taking first. And I did take first with this deck, actually. But you guys will want to check that out. Now, here we've got Tails. He's just messing around with his cards, cycling out, I guess. I don't know exactly what he's doing. Just wait until his opponent plays something. But yeah, so make sure that you wait until your opponent does something if you have all 4 of those cards in your hand. Now, the deck works out really well because you do have those spells, or all 3 of those spells, as well as the graveyard. You're never going to run into any issues with any spellbait decks. They throw it on the princess, you're like, sweet, I'll use the log to get rid of that princess. They're like, oh yeah, I gotta do the goblin barrel. They throw the goblin barrel, oh, I still have arrows. And you're like, ah, shoot. Or even then, if they still have something else, you have the zap to help take care of things. If they play skeleton army, you put the zap down, positive elixir trade, and you're doing pretty excellent. So the deck does work out. Here right there, he even just uses the arrows to just get rid of a little bit of damage. Now, he does end up losing this tower, which is unfortunate. Maybe if he had fireball instead of something like that, it would have worked out a little bit better. But let's just wait and see exactly what he does. Once again, using that log right there works out really well. Now, something else that I wanted to talk about in this deck is the fact that there's a lot of synergy between the Musketeer and the Mega Minion. If your opponent's trying to decide, or if your opponent has Fireball and they're trying to get rid of some damage on the tower, and they Fireball your Mega Minion, or they Fireball your Musketeer, no biggie, you have the other one to be able to help to support that giant, and then that giant with that graveyard, it's just a nasty combination. If you do not have the graveyard and you still want to play this deck, it works out really well with the Goblin Barrel. Actually, I really like playing it with the Goblin Barrel because of how well the Goblin Barrel and the Goblin Gang synergize together. They're both stopped by Zap, and so if your opponent really has to focus really hard if they're trying to if they need to decide exactly which card they want to take care of. Another comment while we're here, if you are interested in other challenge winning decks that do work out, check out the decks that our opponent, that Tails' opponent is using. It's a Royal Giant deck, works out pretty well with that Goblin Barrel there. Now he's at a weird situation actually where he's trying to get damage onto the tower with that Goblin Barrel, and there's no way it's gonna happen. Tails has the arrows, he has the log, it's just not gonna happen. So the deck is working really well. Now, another reason why this deck actually works out really well is because of the synergy between the Goblin Gang and the Graveyard. You can see right here, I mean, Emma he's frozen. He doesn't know what to do. He could have countered that. I don't know if he was just ready to just end it, or if his phone lagged or whatever it was, but or just nerves. Once you get to that 12th round, sometimes you're like, I can't decide what to do, and you just lose because of the nerves. It happens at those 12th round. You just want to win so bad. I get it. I absolutely get it. So Tails actually won that. Now we're going to look at another person that ended up winning using this same exact deck. It was Anonymous, another member of the Kairos Kingdom. If you're interested in joining the Kairos Kingdom, check the link in the description below. There's a link to the application. I'd love to check out your application and see on. If you're passionate about the game, I mean, this Kairos Kingdom is the place to be. It really is. Okay, so one thing that I haven't really talked about is managing your cards. When it comes to the elixir in here. Now, you do want to try and make sure that was a really awkward starting hand, so he ended up just placing the Goblin Gang trying to get something down. But one reason why this deck works out, it's a beatdown deck. It really is. You have that giant paired up with that graveyard. It's not a control or anything like that, and so sometimes you have to be willing to turn your offenses, use them as defenses, just like Anonymous did right there by putting that giant right there. He forces an opponent to place down that tombstone right at the last second, almost was not able to stop that giant, and that ends up working well. If you want to really practice with beatdown, practice counter pushing. Sometimes you need to let your opponent do a little bit of damage to your tower even to do that sometimes. Make sure you just practice that though. So here we have the Goblin Barrel down the other side. He didn't want to waste any elixir, so he ended up doing that. Because he had underleveled cards, the Zap was able to take it out. I mean, it's the first day of the release. Not everybody has tournament standard cards at this moment. But that did allow him to put this giant down here. And Thomas does not have a ton of elixir, whereas Anonymous has plenty of elixir. He's going to end up placing down this Musketeer to help defend against this Bowler. But now this Graveyard is coming down to his side, so he has to be kind of careful about what he's doing, because at that moment he only had spells in his hand. You have to be wary of those types of situations. It will happen if you're not using your spells. And so there he chose the log, cycled back to his Mega Minion, spent just 5 elixir, spent the same amount of elixir as his opponent did to put down the Graveyard, and that ended up working out pretty good, and then he was able to turn it into a counter attack. These counterattacks, pushing and coming back and forth. That's how you get good at the game, is learning when it's appropriate to counter push, and sometimes when it's just, I'm just gonna let this go, you know. Anonymous ends up using that log to get rid of a lot of that stuff right there. And one reason that I really like that Goblin Gang is because they do an excellent job at defending against graveyards, especially if your opponent does not have the log or zap or the arrows. Now, at a tournament standard, you would be able to use the zap would not get rid of the stabby goblin, so you do have to be careful about that. And arrows take a while, and sometimes even the log will miss some of the goblins. So you do have to be careful. Now here, Anonymous used that giant, and he just finishes off the tower with that giant. 1 health left, 10 seconds left to go. I don't know if Thomas, I mean, once again, I don't know what's up with people giving up the last second. I never give up when I'm playing challenges. I'm like, I got to win the match. So that is the first deck. It's a blast to play. It's really actually very easy to use. Even switching out the Goblin Barrel, it does work out really well. It's a solid one. If you guys are interested, definitely try it out. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Let's go ahead and take a look at that second deck here, guys. Okay, there it is, a mortar deck. Man, what is this? Now I'm just going to show you the challenge winning replay. If you want some more gameplay, you can check out the stream that I did yesterday. I played this deck, and I have to say, the deck does a really good job at naturally putting your opponent into some really weird circumstances and some weird situations. If you're not super familiar with how to play beatdown, that's okay. This is a good one to start out with, especially because it uses the common mortar instead of the Expo, which is an epic. So right here, he has this Lava Hound coming down, so he knows that either he has to set up his defenses early, or he has to go on the offense. At this point, he actually ends up doing a little bit of both. He places this mortar right there in the middle to where it's going to actually lock onto one of the towers. He's going to get 1 hit on there, but that Inferno tower was able to get rid of it very nicely, and paired up with that Electro Wizard to stop everything else. That's a positive elixir trade right there, because the Inferno Tower got rid of the 5 elixir balloon, as well as that really expensive Lava Hound. Very interesting situation. where now he was able to get a little bit of damage on both towers because of that, but his opponent is building up some type of a push. He doesn't have the best defenses, and so he ends up using the fireball to try and get rid of the tower. In that situation, that was an excellent move, I think so. He does have this Goblin Gang, which he's going to use to get rid of this Mega Minion and then put down the Inferno Tower in a ideal position to get rid of the Lava Hound in a lot of circumstances. At this point, I think that he probably should have just used the log, but he does use the Electro Wizard to get rid of that. Now with the arrows, because the Electro Wizard was placed down, he forces his opponent to use the arrows to try and get rid of the Electro Wizard, and that's 3 elixir that his opponent was barely able to get any damage onto the tower, and that puts Nitrome into a really good situation. He's worried about that tombstone, and I don't blame him, because that mortar, I mean, it launches those shells and it takes forever to do so, and so he does not want to waste it on a tombstone like that, and that was actually really close timing. Ended up getting locking onto the tower at that last second, and he was able to get a shell landing on the opponent's tower. Now that balloon did take out the rest of those spear goblins, and right now he had placed down that Electro Wizard to get rid of this Mega Minion and the Fireball to get rid of the rest of those minions. Now I wouldn't have necessarily done that specific move, but it ended up working out really well because that Lava Hound does such a small amount of damage. He uses the log to get rid of that skeleton army, and then that Goblin Gang, the Goblin Gang, 3 elixir, was able to stop those lava pups. And it's really great too, because the lava pups, or the stabby goblins, will just run right under and distract while the spear goblins are able to finish it off. Nitrome setting up his defense and his offense and his defense. He ends up using kind of a similar situation that he did last time, with that Electro Wizard finishing off that Mega Minion and that Inferno Tower, getting rid of that Lava Hound. He's in a really good situation. Now here he does a unique push, just a tiny little push. His opponent ends up missing some of those goblins, and that push is actually, it works out pretty well if your opponent uses a lot of air troops like this opponent does. And with that ice golem right in front of that, and those spear goblins going to town right there, his mortar's able to lock onto there. His opponent can't stop this Electro Wizard. He might have been able to put down that tombstone, but he decides not to, tries to go for a counter push, but it's too late. Nitrome has the fireball and the log, and that ends up winning him those 12 rounds. This deck is just super unique, and that's one reason why I love it. It definitely works out. Those 12th rounds, I'm definitely going to be trying this out in some grand challenges, because it's proven to work well in that classic challenge. I think that it's with some practice, I think I'll be able to do some really good damage on, or get some good gold farmed up. Anyways, guys, it was a ton of fun to make this video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. It's been a while since I've done videos, like I said, so make sure you... I miss a lot of those comments from a lot of my faithful viewers that haven't unfortunately been able to join the streams. So please let me know what you thought in the comment section below. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.